Welcome, everyone. We're back to our live videos, this little series that I'm doing on the book Christ Object Lessons, looking at the parable of the talents, and it breaks it down into several different sections. So, this is part of that series, but if you missed the other ones, it's okay. This one stands just fine on its own, and this time we're going to be focusing on the one talent. Once again, if you're familiar with the parable, it's found in Matthew chapter 25, the parable of the talents. One person received just one talent and he went and hid it. And I think last video we talked about that's the one thing you don't want to do. Well, today we're going to be talking about that a little bit more. Once again, there's going to be more information on this. This is going to be available as a podcast, hopefully on YouTube as well. It's available live right now on Facebook and on the Wisdom app. If you're on the Wisdom app, follow me. I always follow back those who follow me, and then also interact with me on the social media links. They're there with my account. If you're on Facebook, well, you already know me. You're part of this group. And once again, for more notes, Pr.Marlon.com. That's Pr.Marlon.com. I'm going to have more notes and different things. It might be a few weeks until this gets uploaded there because it's on queue, but I do find it helpful to do this live to get a chance to interact with you, even if it's a few weeks behind on my podcast. But here we go, the one talent. So I'm reading from this book called Christ Object Lessons. I'm going to be quoting from it. I'm going to be paraphrasing as well because the English is a little bit old. This book was published in the year 1900. So I paraphrase it sometimes to make the language more inclusive, sometimes to make it just more clear. And if you want to, the original text, I always put a link to that as well. And it's going to be on the YouTube description if you're watching this on YouTube, and on Facebook. I already have it on there. And then I think that's it. I think we're ready to jump into it. This is a larger section, so I'm going to try to be clear, speak clearly, but also move along so that we can have this done and not have this be too long. So let's jump into it. The one talent. The man, and I would say, the person, but on the parable it is a man. The man who received one talent went and digged in the earth and hid his Lord's money. It was the one with the smallest gift who left his talent unimproved. In this is given a warning to all who feel that the smallness of their endowments excuses them from service for Christ. So I was looking at this earlier, preparing for this live stream, and just to let you know, the author here does set the bar really high. Once again, I enjoy this because it challenges me. As a Christian, it's not something that makes me question my salvation, but rather in light of my assurance of salvation, how should I live my life? How do I want to live my life? What should I aim for? And that's why I find this valuable. Once again, this is meant as a conversation starter. I don't have all the answers, but I do find this helpful and useful. And let me know your thoughts on this as we go on. So I am reading from this book because I think it helps structure the talk, and also there's great insights and great wisdom in this book, Christ Object Lessons. So I'm going to be reading from it and then just sharing my thoughts and paraphrasing as we go on. So I'm going to go on here to the next sentence. It says, if they could do some great thing, how gladly would they undertake it? But because they can serve only in little things, they think themselves justified in doing nothing. What a word of warning here to all of us, right? Oh, if I could do some great thing for God, if I could do some great thing with my life, I would do it. But I only have this little job. I only have this one talent. I can only do small things, so I'm not going to do anything at all. That's dangerous. You want to be careful with that. You want to avoid that. Whatever you have to do it well. And this is the main theme of this portion that we're going to be talking about it here. So it says here, in this they err, right? In this they make a mistake. The Lord, in his distribution of gifts, is testing character. So we talked about this earlier. God is the one who decides what gifts to give to each one of us. We don't all get the same gifts. We don't all get the same number of gifts. But as we receive our gifts, and we each do get at least one, it's also a test for our character. Are we going to work with this one? Or we're going to think, oh, this is too small, this is too little, I'm just going to bury it. It doesn't make a difference, right? This is the warning. God is testing character. It says here, the man or woman who neglected to improve his or her talent proved him or herself an unfaithful servant. So if you receive a talent and you neglect it, you don't improve it, you are proving yourself unfit for service. The problem is not that you had just the one talent. The problem is that you didn't use the one talent that you do have. He had received five. Had he received 5 talents, he would have buried them as he buried the one. His misuse of the one talent showed that he despised the gifts of heaven. And I find this to be true in business as well, in life, in school. There's people that think if they got the promotion, they would work harder. If they got the better job, they would do more. But because they got this little job, they don't do anything. Well, chances are the way that you do whatever job you have is the way that you do every job. So do it well. Otherwise, you're gonna be showing yourself unfaithful, right? What if you receive more, you're gonna misuse the more that you receive as well. Luke 16:10 says the following: He that is faithful in that which is least is faithful also in much. Luke 16:10. The importance of the little things is often underrated because they are small, but they supply much of the actual discipline of life. I love this. I have this part here underlined, right? The importance of the little things is often underrated because they're small, but they supply much of the actual discipline of life. They are really, there are really no non-essentials in the Christian life. Our character building will be full of peril while we underrate the importance of little things. So don't underrate the importance of little things. The little things are important, and they're the ones that make up, life. The importance of the little things is often underrated because they're small, but they supply much of the actual discipline of life. The actual discipline of life, who you are and how you handle life, is revealed on how you handle the little things. I am in agreement with the author here on this point. Says here, he, and once again, this refers mostly in the masculine. It's not meant to exclude women. It's just the way people wrote at this time. And the author of this book is a woman. So just, keep that in mind. He that is unjust in the least is unjust also in much. By faithfulness, even in the smallest duties, man robs his maker of the service which is his due. So, by unfaithfulness in even the smallest duties, men, women, they rob his maker, they rob, their maker of the service which is his due. This unfaithfulness reacts upon himself. He fails of gaining the grace, the power, the force of character which may be received through an unreserved surrender to God. So you fail to gain grace, power, and force of character, which you could be receiving if you just surrender yourself completely to God. If you're going to do everything and do it well, you can grow, you can get better, you can improve, and God will bless you in that. Just don't bury it. Just don't do nothing. Do something and do it well, and you will improve. There are blessings in there. Living apart from Christ, he or she is subjected to Satan's temptations, and he makes mistakes in his work for the master. Because he is not guided by right principles in little things, he fails to obey God in the great matters which he regards in his special work. The defects cherished in dealing with life's minor details pass into more important affairs. He acts on the principles to which he has accustomed himself. So I'm going to talk about this here in a little bit. One second. So here's the thing, right? You develop these habits in the small details, in the small things in life, in the small areas of life, and then you it becomes a habit, right? You accustom yourself to doing this. So here's this next part, and I have this highlighted and underlined and circled. It says, thus, actions repeated form habits, habits form character, and by the character our destiny for time and for eternity is decided. So here's the importance of the little things, right? You are defining who you are. You are shaping how you handle everything by how you handle the little things. Should you neglect the little things, the big things will also be neglected. This is important to keep in mind. So be faithful on the little things. You're building your character. You are qualifying yourself to greater responsibilities in the future. Once again, this goes in the work life. If you're just starting off at a company, if you're just doing your internship, if you're in school still, if you just got your first job, the little things matter. How you do those things matter, especially if you want to be a servant of God, if you find yourself, seeking God, do it for his honor and glory, even the little things. So let's continue here back to the book. It says, only by faithfulness in the little things can the soul be trained to act with fidelity under larger responsibilities. God brought Daniel and his fellows into connection with the great men of Babylon. This is a reference to the book of Daniel. If you're not familiar with the story, you can check it out later. It's a wonderful story. There's prophecy in there as well, but there's also quite a bit of narrative. So there's story and prophecy. If you don't want to get into the prophecy, read just the story part, and that will give you a sense for what this portion here is talking about. So it says here, these heathen men, which is a word for people who don't believe in God or in the God of the Bible, might become. Let me start this again, this sentence. God brought Daniel and his fellows into connection with the great men of Babylon, that these heathen men might become acquainted with the principles of true religion. In the midst of a nation of idolaters, right, they had other gods, Daniel was to represent the character of God. And this is meaning the God of the Bible, the God that I happen to believe in as well, right? So he was supposed to represent the character of God in the midst of these people who followed other gods. How did he become fitted for a position of so great trust and honor? And Babylon was the great empire in the ancient world during this time. It was his faithfulness, talking about Daniel, it was Daniel's faithfulness in the little things that gave complexion to his whole life. He honored God in the smallest duties, and the Lord cooperated with him. To Daniel and his companions, God gave knowledge and skill in all learning and wisdom, and Daniel had understanding in all visions and dreams. So Daniel received this as a gift from God, and God honored him because Daniel was faithful in the small duties. So this part here that God gave knowledge and skill and learning to Daniel and wisdom, it says in Daniel 1:17. So this was a gift from God, but Daniel contributed to this by being faithful in the small things. The way that I understand this, as I read this, I see that when we are faithful to God in the little things that we have in our life, we are telling God, you can give me more responsibility. You can give me more abilities. You can give me bigger things. I will handle it because I'm handling these little things well. So this is my understanding of it, right? I am showing that I'm fit for greater responsibilities, that God can bless me with more when I am faithful in the little things. As God called Daniel to witness for him in Babylon, so he calls us to be his witnesses in the world today, right? So this story is not just this story of something that happened in ancient days in the Bible times. No. There's a principle at work here. God is calling us to be witnesses today. And to the degree that we will get to witness for God depends on how faithful we are on the small things. And this is once again, this is the theme of this portion that we're talking about in this episode. In the smallest as well as the largest affairs of life, God desires us to reveal to men and women the principles of his kingdom. Christ, in his life on earth, taught the lesson of careful attention to the little things. The great work of redemption weighed continually upon his soul. As he was teaching and healing, all the energies of mind and body were taxed to the utmost. Yet, this is talking about Jesus, he noticed the most simple things in life and in nature. His most instructive lessons were those in which, by the simple things of nature, he illustrated the great truths of the kingdom of God. He did not overlook the necessities of the humblest of his servants. His ear heard every cry of need. He was awake to the touch of the afflicted woman in the crowd. The very slightest touch of faith brought a response. When he, talking about Jesus, raised from the dead the daughter of Jairus, he reminded her parents that she must have something to eat. When by his own mighty power he rose from the tomb, He did not disdain to fold and put carefully in the proper place the grave clothes with which he had been laid. I underlined this part. Isn't that amazing? Like when Jesus rose from the dead, it's like I have things to do, right? This amazing thing just happened. Jesus took the time to fold his grave clothes and leave them there, right? Folded in place. He didn't leave his room a mess, you could say. If Jesus had time for that, it motivates me to make my bed when I get up in the morning, to keep my office clean here at the church, right? I try to make it look nice. To just everything that I do. And when I interact with people, am I carefully listening? Am I fully present? I want to be intentional about this. And once again, this book, right? This chapter, this portion that we're reading, it motivates me. It reminds me to do this in the little things that I'm doing. Am I being faithful? Am I offering God my very best? And the people around me, right? As a representative of God, as a believer in God, as a follower of God, do I lead by example? Do I show people that they are important? And when I give them my attention, do I give them my undivided attention? So these are just practical ways that for me, it makes a difference. And I'd love to know from you in the comments, what are some of the things that you do intentionally as a way of witnessing to others, as a way of serving God and revealing his character to people who are around you. So let's go here to the next paragraph. It says, the work to which as Christians we are called to do is to cooperate with Christ for the salvation of souls. I'm probably going to share this later on social media. I have it highlighted, and if you follow me, you already know I love to share these quotes. And this makes it so clear, right? It's so practical. The work to which as Christians we are called is to cooperate with Christ for the salvation of souls. That's what we're called to do. Once you become a believer, once you accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior, what is it? You're called to cooperate with him for the salvation of souls. This work we have entered into a covenant with him to do. To neglect the work is to prove disloyal to Christ. But in order to accomplish this work, we must follow his example of faithful, conscientious attention to the little things. This is the secret of success in every line of Christian effort and influence. You want to be a good Christian, you want to be a good follower of God, that means you show faithful, conscientious attention to the little things. That's one of the things that I try to tell people when you're applying for work, especially teenagers, their first job, I'm writing letters of recommendation. I tell them, look, as the church pastor, right, as your spiritual leader, I am writing a letter of recommendation. Make us proud. Make God proud. I mean, it's a way of saying it, right? Don't be lazy. Don't do, what's the word that I'm looking for? Don't do bad work. Don't do shoddy work. Don't do something that would make you ashamed if somebody said, "Oh, this is the work that he or she did." Do a good work and let it be a witness to the God that you serve, to who you are as a woman, as a man, to your character. Just do good work, right? Just be faithful. If your boss is not around, be faithfully doing the work that you're supposed to do. The Lord desires his people to reach the highest round of the ladder that they may glorify him by possessing the ability he is willing to bestow. So God is willing to bless you to be able to reach the highest ranking in whatever area of life you are. Just be faithful to him as you do it. Through the grace of God, every provision has been made for us to reveal that we act upon better plans than those upon which the world acts. Right? We are held to a higher standard. I answer to God. It doesn't matter if somebody's watching over me or not. I can be by myself in the room and I'm going to be doing the work that I'm supposed to do. Why? Because of my relationship with God. It's not about my boss looking over me. It's about who I am, my character. And that is, something that God makes available and provides for me as I seek to honor him in everything that I do. We are to show a superiority in intellect, in understanding, in skill and knowledge because we believe God and his power to work upon human hearts. So we are not to be lazy, to be slow, to be unwilling to learn or to receive training. Rather, we should be seeking it and be an example. But those who have not a large endowment of gifts need not be discouraged. So let's say you are not the one you're not the smartest person in the room, right? And I find myself there. I am not the smartest person, even among the leadership here at my local church. I am surrounded by men and women who are amazing people, right? They're smart, they are driven, they're disciplined, they have experience much more than I do. And then I love being surrounded by them. But if you find yourself, right, like, oh, I don't have all these gifts that people around me have, I'm not as good as this person or as that person, don't be discouraged. So here is the advice, right? Let them use what they have, faithfully guarding every weak point in their character, seeking by divine grace to make it strong. So I don't have to be better than everybody else. I just need to be faithful with what I have. Count faithfulness as your objective, as your goal. That's what I do, right? What are my goals? I want to be faithful in what I have to do. So there are people who are more gifted than me in other areas, and that's great. I praise the Lord for that. But I want to be faithful in my part, and whatever is my responsibility, I want to make sure that I am doing that well. Into every action of life, we are to weave faithfulness and loyalty, cultivating the attributes that will enable us to accomplish the work, right? So do you need more focus? Do you need more strength? Do you need more attention? Do you need more training? Focus on what you need to accomplish your work well. Now, here's this next part, and this is really tough. So, the author here is not pulling back any punches. So hold on. It says here, habits of negligence should be resolutely overcome. Don't make a habit of neglecting things, right? Of not doing what you're supposed to do. Oh, I'll do it later. Oh, I'll do it tomorrow. Oh, I'll get to it eventually. Don't do it this. So I'm going to read this part again. Habits of negligence should be resolutely overcome. I think this already, just this part, if this is all you take away from this part, right, this will go a long way in helping you succeed in life and do better and honor God, and just lots of good things will come from this. Just habits of negligence should be resolutely overcome. Many think it is sufficient excuse for the grossest errors to plead forgetfulness. Oh, I just forgot. But they do not. But do they not, as well as others possess intellectual faculties? Then they should discipline their minds to be retentive. It is a sin to forget, a sin to be negligent. If you form a habit of negligence, you may neglect your own soul's salvation and at last find that you are unready for the kingdom of God. And this is something that I work on, and I have like 2 planners and reminders on my phone, and my wife really helps me, and I have great people here in the church that also constantly remind me of things, and I need to work on this some more. But don't let this be an excuse. Don't make it a habit to be negligent. I don't think I'm negligent. I tend to be forgetful. So I'm working on that. And this speaks to me, which goes to show this is not me preaching at you saying, get your life together. This is me saying, how can I improve my life and my ministry and myself as a husband, as a father, as a leader, as a friend, right? So great truths must be brought into little things. Practical religion is to be carried into the lowly duties of daily life. The greatest qualification of any man or woman is to obey implicitly the word of the Lord, right? The greatest qualification is obey the word of the Lord. So be honest, be kind, be dependable and reliable, right? Be just a good person. Follow the guidelines in the Bible. And this is the greatest qualification. Start there and then watch everything else fall into place. So here is the next paragraph. It says, because they are not connected with some directly religious work, many feel that their lives are useless, that they are doing nothing for the advancement of God's kingdom. But this is a mistake. If their work is that which someone must do, they should not accuse themselves of uselessness in the great household of God. The humblest duties are not to be ignored. Any work is a blessing, and faithfulness in it may prove a training for higher trusts. I love this, right? Any work that someone must do, if you're doing any work, right, that someone must do, you should not accuse yourself of being useless in the household of God. The humblest duties are not to be ignored. Any work is a blessing, and faithfulness in it may prove training for higher trust. Be faithful in whatever you have to do right now, and you're showing yourself, you're proving, right? This is training for a higher trust. Do this well, do this now, and don't worry, bigger responsibilities will come your way. However lowly, I'm back to quoting from the book now, however lowly any work done for God with a full surrender of self is as acceptable to Him as the highest service. No offering is small that is given with true heartedness and gladness of soul. No offering is too small. If you're doing it with sincerity, if you're doing it with full surrender to God, you're doing it for God's honor and glory, whatever you're doing, it's good. It's an act of worship. It counts. God has high regard for that, even if it's not as big as what somebody else is doing. Wherever we may be, Christ bids us take up the duty that presents itself. In this is, if this is in the home, take hold willingly and earnestly to make the home a pleasant place. If you are a mother or a father, train your children for Christ. This is verily a work of God. Let me read that again. This is Old English, right? This is as verily a work for God as is of the minister in the pulpits. This is great. So for parents, right, training your child for Christ is as much a work for God as the work of a minister in the pulpit. Training your children and teaching them about Jesus. I love that. If your duty is in the kitchen, seek to be a perfect cook. Prepare food that is healthful, nourishing, and appetizing. And as you employ the best ingredients in preparing the food, remember that you are to give your mind the best thoughts. If it is your work to till the soil or to engage in any other trade or occupation, make a success of the present duty. Once again, this was written or published in the year 1900, right? Work was a little different back then. But the idea is everything you're doing it, you do it well. Put your mind on what you are doing. In all your work, represent Christ. Do as He would do in your place. I love this because it's not just about theology. It's not just about reading the Bible. It's not just about prayer. I mean, those things are important. I'm all for reading the Bible. I'm all for prayer. But how you do your work is incredibly important because people around you are going to benefit from that, and they're going to become more interested in your theology, in your walk with God, what your views are regarding the world, if they enjoy working with you, if you're a good employee, if you're a good boss, if you're a good mom, if you're a good volunteer, whatever you're doing, do it well. And that is a powerful tool in opening people up and making them interested in what else you have to say regarding God and eternity and those things. So I'm almost done here with this portion. It says, however small your talent, God has a place for it. That one talent, wisely used, will accomplish its appointed work. By faithfulness in little duties, we are to work on the plan of addition, and God will work for us on the plan of multiplication. I love this. I'm going to read this again. By faithfulness in little duties, we are to work on the plan of addition, and God will work for us on the plan of multiplication. These littles will become the most precious influences in His work. Once again, Old English, but I like this. These littles, right? These little things, those little details will become the most precious influences in His work. God will take care of that. You just make sure on being faithful and doing well the little things. Let a living faith run like threads of gold through the performance of even the smallest duties. Then all the daily work will promote Christian growth. Everything will promote Christian growth when you do it well, when you let your living faith, be threaded through it like a thread of gold. I love this picture, that comes to mind when I read this. There will be a continual looking unto Jesus. Love for Him will give vital force to everything that is undertaken. Thus, through the right use of our talents, we may link ourselves by a golden chain to the higher world. This is true sanctification, for sanctification consists in the cheerful performance of daily duties in perfect obedience to the will of God, cheerful performance of daily duties, right? I would love to be surrounded by people like that. I have the privilege of being surrounded by many men and women who behave in this way as I work with my local volunteers here and as I have done in previous churches before this one. It's a blessing. And if you can be that person in your school, in your workplace, in your home, what a joy to be around you. Now, this last paragraph, and we finish this section, it says, but many Christians, right, many believers are waiting for some great work to be brought to them. Because they cannot find a place large enough to satisfy their ambition, they fail to perform faithfully the common duties of life. These seem to them uninteresting. What a tragedy. I'm going to read this again. But many Christians are waiting for some great work to be brought to them. Because they cannot find a place large enough to satisfy their ambition, they fail to perform faithfully the common duties of life. These seem to them uninteresting. Day by day, they let slip opportunities for showing their faithfulness to God. While they are waiting for some great work, life passes away, its purposes unfulfilled, its work unaccomplished. And these are somber words to end on. I guess it's, sobering words as well. And I'm going to read this last paragraph one more time and we'll end this live session. But many Christians are waiting for some great work to be brought to them. Because they cannot find a place large enough to satisfy their ambition, they fail to perform faithfully the common duties of life. These seem to them uninteresting. Day by day, they let slip opportunities for showing their faithfulness to God. While they're waiting for some great work, life passes away, its purposes unfulfilled, its work unaccomplished. Don't let that be you, right? And I don't want this to be me. So the idea is to be faithful, even in the small things. I'd love to know your thoughts on this. Do you agree, disagree? What insights come to your mind? Share them with me. I love reading the comments. I look forward to doing this again next week.